All right, we're live with Jeff Agostinelli. Agostinelli. I always have a hard time saying your name. I should practice it out loud at home
You
before we
nailed
get
it
on
the
here.
second time. That's good, man.
I practiced it in my head though, which is not the same thing as it coming out of your mouth.
Nah.
Never, never. We met. What was it? Was it 2 years ago? 3 years ago
I
in
think
North
it was.
Carolina?
I think it was 3.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was. It was probably 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. Today we're going to talk about. Well, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but my intention is to talk about systems and business and all that. And our primary audience is coaches, and a lot of them, the systems is the thing they struggle with the most. And I imagine, and I think most coaches, when they hear that, think about pieces of software or this and that, and it's a big question mark, and it tends to be something that a lot of people struggle with. So my hope is that by the end of the show, people go, oh, that's what business systems are, and that's how you build them, and okay, this is more obvious now.
Yeah.
And the reason it's a mystery to a lot of people is because different people have different personalities. And for me personally, I have a very good idea. I can see systems very easily, but actually going in and building them, that's, I get about 5 minutes in, I might get really excited about it. And then 30 minutes later, I'm looking on Instagram or whatever. But you hit me up a while back and was asking me questions. You were asking me questions about pain points or frustrations in the business, which is exactly what entrepreneurs should be doing, is going out and looking for potential clients or seeing what problems are in the market and then building from there. So I love that. So just want to set that up for the premise of the whole show. And first I want to ask you, how are you doing? We're about 2 months into, the media and the government requesting that we lock it down.
Yeah.
Lock it down,
baby. Keep that shit under wraps, right? So it's like, it's funny because I was racking my brain yesterday. I'm like, how long has it been? And my best guesstimate was 6 weeks. So I guess, wow, 2 months, eh? It's been
we're
all right.
at almost right at 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I had said before we started, I was like, my reality really doesn't have to operate out in the world a ton. I enjoy playing in the world, but I also know that, like, I trust the process, so to speak. So like being invited, I guess you could say, or forced in some ways, maybe to stay inside has its benefits, right? It's like we get to really kind of examine things with a fine-tooth comb and see what gets to stay and what gets to go, which has been really a blessing. But also too, like, I can get Whole Foods delivered to my front door, right?
Yeah.
I jokingly said the other day, I was like, if I can get like vegan ice cream and a vegan pizza delivered to my door and like make some food, like it's not that bad.
It's really not.
I mean, seriously, it's like I can pull up my phone, right? And I can order hundreds of dollars worth of groceries from Whole Foods, and 2 hours later go to my doorstep and be like, sweet dude, I got my groceries. If anything, Mike, my biggest realization from COVID is that I should not be going to the grocery store. I'm going to outsource my grocery shopping to the food delivery guy.
Yeah.
As trite as that sounds, but hey, what the hell?
Yeah. Good lesson. Way to
right?
delegate there.
So deep, Jeff. So deep.
You know what though? Like this has been a really good time of reflection for me too. And as much as I dislike what caused me to have this space, I may judge it. I may question, people's motives, or government or media motives and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, we don't know what's going to happen after this. Anyone who thinks that they do is full of it.
Well, I think too. Oh, go ahead. My apologies.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen after that. But I mean, for me to sit my ass in one spot out in the country, because I went out. This was going down. And I go, this is no place. If this is what they say it is, the city is no place to be. And my friends in the city seem to be doing fine, so I don't think it's what they said it was going to be. But this has caused me to go to 2 months so far into reflection, and I wasn't going to do that anytime soon on my own. I remember having the thought of like, I should get away by myself and this and that. And then I was like, no, I got a lot of cool shit on the calendar. I'm going to keep traveling. So, yeah, it's been a real blessing.
What's been your
I hope
biggest
it's a blessing
realization
for other
from it?
people. Um, I see how spread thin my energy was. So, uh, I was getting away with a lot. So I have a lot of energy. So, so I can get away with some things. I can travel and still work and do business and stuff like that. But since having my ass sat in one spot, the amount of focus I've been able to put into building the business has been incredible. And then I haven't been dating any women. I've really, as more time's gone on, I've reduced how much communication I've had with women I was talking to before. And it really, yeah, I've realized how good I am. It's been a nice little test of like how good I am with just me.
I love that.
And
So good, dude.
man, it feels good. And I also feel the desire to socially interact. So
Absolutely.
looking forward to that.
Nice.
Have you been able to interact with people, or you because I remember when I stopped by your place, you were living by yourself.
Yeah, I moved since then, so I'm in a different spot, and actually have housemates. So it's there's I live with a couple, and they have a 6-year-old son. So my daughter's 10, and she's actually still going back between here and between her mom's house. But like, all of us have been spending more time together. It's like we got a sick gym in the garage, a playground. You'd be like, oh my god, you kidding me? Squat racks, maces, bats, um, kettlebells, like ropes, right? Like battle
Yeah.
ropes. Um, Punching bags, bars punching, like, I mean, it's insane. So anyways, we've had plenty of interaction. I also I'm a social dude. Like I'm not the guy. I'll text and like keep in contact like that, but I'm the guy that picks up the phone. I'm like, hey, what's up? I was chatting with a friend the
Yeah.
past few days, and her and I were messaging back and forth, and last time just like, fuck this, dude. I'm like, pick up the phone, like, hey, what's up? So it's like I'm chatty, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Have you been doing more phone calls?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. I was doing a lot more phone calls at the beginning than recently. I've been actually become more introverted, which is strange.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Nice, dude.
All right. So you shot me a message. How long ago was it? Was this maybe six? It wasn't
It was
6 months ago. Maybe less than
no,
that.
it was like, I want to say like 3 months ago.
Yeah, 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, can you fill me in on why you were asking that question and where you're at with it?
Yeah. So I feel like the majority of coaches, for instance, specifically, is that like, because we fall into a different category, right? It's like, yes, we're entrepreneurs, but at the same time, a lot of us have this desire for freedom. So it's almost like we're inherently allergic to structure, right? And I've noticed this just through working with coaches and through working with creatives as well, is that there's this thing that happens in our brain when we hear structure or discipline or routine or any of these things. And it's almost like you can probably feel it right now. You're kind of like, oh, it's like this weird, creepy, crawly sensation. And yes, and obviously we're both language geeks. So like this is going to be fun. Replacing it with different words is fantastic, but also like recontextualizing the conversation and realizing that we get to have systems or rhythms or ways of being that allow us to operate within a container, kind of like bumper bowling, right? That keeps us on track so we don't go in the gutter, so that we strike out every time, and that we don't leave shit up to chance. Because I've tried it all different ways, right? Like you know me enough by now. I think that I can be like super woo on one side and then like super structured on the other side. And I've just found that there has to be this beautiful blend of the two, of the masculine and the feminine, that we've contextualized into like overly structured and like super woo woo on the other side. There really gets to be this like divine balance of the two, where we're moving in unison with, okay, we have structure, but we have room for creativity. We have systems, but we have also time and space for flow. And I've just become obsessed with being able to help people find the way that their rhythms move, right? And this is where I love, and really where the lesson came, is in ultra running, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so like being able to be in this conversation, what I call of like minimum effort, maximum ease, of like being able to push, like the other day, 21 miles running, 3 hours and 10 minutes, of being able to just be in cadence and like not be in pain, and to be in just really simple flow, but also kicking up the pace when I want. So it's just like this ability to play like one foot in both worlds, moving forward, but also being able to pay attention to what's coming in and through you, and being able to act on that as well.
Yeah, I've noticed that I've been very fortunate to have started my entrepreneurial journey when I was running a gym with putting structures in place, putting systems
Mhm.
in place, and things like that. So I've always had a level of systemization going on. So I'm one of the rare coaches that have been able to take a month off,
Mhm.
and the cash flow still runs. But I know most coaches, even if they know how to make great money. So one thing I've witnessed over the years is a lot of coaches, when they start giving business advice, you can tell a new one. Um, when when it's like, oh, I need more money, and they go, "We'll just charge more." I've run into coaches where that was their hammer. That
Mhm.
was their answer to any money problem was charge more.
Right.
And they're not wrong. Like most coaches I've come in contact with, not all of them, they're just charging. They're not, that's not the only problem they have. It's one of the issues is, you could
Yeah.
probably raise your prices and manage your money differently. And even
Mhm.
that's a structure thing, is how are you managing your money. But and what are you charging and why are you charging it and all this stuff. But that's something that I've noticed. And then, but those same coaches are like, oh, just charge more. They may make $1 million in a year, but if they take any time off at all, it just, I've watched them go up and I've seen them go down really fast. I've had big highs and big lows. And one of the things I've noticed is where I bottom out financially usually is just indicated by the type of systems I have in place. Would you
Mm.
agree?
Yeah, I mean, even to what came to mind when you were laying that out, it's just like even your downtime. It's like you really have to schedule like all of that stuff in there. It's like you get to plan for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
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 I definitely agree. Yeah, I mean, having structure is absolutely important. I also think though too that a lot of people on the other side of it, not the ones that lack structure, but you can be overstructured too, right? Like being
Oh yeah.
completely maniacal about having an SOP for everything the first time you do it isn't really the purpose of systemization, right? It's like it's just not. I know people, and I've worked with people who are like, all right, I did this once, I need to create a process around it. It's like, do it 3 times, then create a process around it. It's like you don't need to processize everything to death and then change it 17 times along the way, because now you're
Yeah.
wasting time in different places.
Yeah. I found that when I've done it 3 times, it's time to systemize. But the
Yeah.
way I did it the first time and the third time are usually pretty different. And I'm
Hmm.
glad. And I've worked with people who wanted to systemize, didn't want to repeat anything ever. It's like, oh, we're not going to repeat anything ever. We do it once, and this is how it is. And that actually, like, I didn't feel good to me. It was just like, oh, I just like we're constantly moving with a minimum viable product instead of refining a product or process to where it's actually really effective and efficient.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of coaches, when they get into business in the beginning, is they do enjoy some success in the beginning. It's like, oh, I launch a coaching program. I got 5 people to sign up for, $1,000 or $1,500, and it's like, for a lot of people, that's more money they've ever made, or that's what they made in their corporate gig. And they're like, oh, okay, I can leave that. And then they end up in this hustle wheel. It's like, oh, fuck,
Hmm.
man, I'm in this hustle wheel. I got to keep hustling if I'm going to keep it rolling. And you may be making $10,000 a month, which I think a lot of coaches hear that and go, oh, shit, I wish I could make $10,000 a month.
Hmm.
And it's actually a very low level, a low amount of systems and structure you need in place to make that amount of money. But you'll realize pretty soon is like, if you want to go beyond that, what got you to 10,000 may be something completely different. Can you do you have a perspective on that? Like what gets you to
Yeah.
this amount of money and then what gets you to the next round and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I feel like you could easily get to the 5-figure mark per month without systems, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a proponent of it. Like I think that you can do it, but it's very hard to sustain it, right? It's like, I think there's a sweet spot of putting in effort and being able to consistently generate business every month. And then you cap out at a certain amount, right? That could be 10K, that could be 12K, maybe even 15K per month. And when you're at that level, it's like, okay, cool, I can do this and I can keep hustling to bring business in. But if I'm going to continue to go past that, I have to have systems in place. So it's one of those things where it's like, say like the 150, 200K mark per year. It's like, that's almost the point where it's like, you absolutely have to have systems in place in order to go beyond that. Otherwise it just becomes this incessant hustle that's just not sustainable. Like you just can't
Yeah.
sustain a particular pace. I mean, you can, but most likely you're going to start the warning signs, if you will, are like excessive caffeine consumption, high levels of stress. Stress is good, but not at the point where you're like flipping out on everybody in your surroundings because you can't handle your own shit, right? Like a level of, being able to like emotion regulation, like being able to understand what you're feeling and how to do something with it has to be present at all levels. But when you can't do that anymore, it's a clear indication that something is off, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that I think, when you're getting into the like low mid 6-figure range, it's like if you don't have systems in place, you're probably going to burn out pretty quick.
When do you work with entrepreneurs and coaches or just coaches primarily?
I work with both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about coaches specifically. What are the most common problems you're seeing with coaches that are lacking systems? Like you start talking to one of them and go, oh, okay, this is where they're at and this is where they need help first.
They usually just have too much that they want to do, right? It's like, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I want to do the podcast and the YouTube and the video and the this and the this. And before they can actually like have enough structure to syndicate content intelligently, they want to do everything under the sun, or they want to start all these projects, or they're obsessed with like you mentioned software and systems, right? It's a big difference, right?
Yeah.
Systems help keep things in order. Software, especially these days, if you're on the software train of like, oh, I got to use this tool, I got to use this tool, if you're still like comparing CRMs, like just get over it. Just pick something, dude. Like, I don't want to hear about all these different bells and whistles. It's like, if you can send people emails, awesome. Send a broadcast. Like, I don't want to hear about all these like 7 million campaigns that you have running and like this funnel and this thing. Like, overcomplication, I would say, is the disease of the age, right? It's like trying to make things way more difficult than it needs to be. I think in the beginning, most coaches really need to focus on connecting with people and creating, like, first of all, really having a problem that they solve. Most
Yeah.
coaches, I think, are generalists, which is just not going to get, it doesn't have enough traction, so to speak. Like there's nothing that people can grab onto and be like, oh, that's me. Because I think a lot of coaches just like, if I have enough certifications, if I have enough desire to want to help people, then people are going to come to me and want to work with me. But
Yeah.
they're just hesitant to really just narrow down their focus because they think in a way that it's limiting. It's really, I think, the same root as the structure conversation, right? They're like afraid to create structure because it's going to be restrictive. And really why they got into this in the first place is because they want freedom. So there's almost like this conflict of interest internally that's going on. And what's really required is just a level of clarity and a level of focus to be able to trust in the fact that like the more directed you can be in your messaging and in your systems eventually, the better it's going to be. Like it's like a particle accelerator, right? And like it makes things go faster because you're not like bouncing from side to side. You're moving straight ahead. It's a straight line, so to speak, instead of this like scatterbrain bullshit that goes on most of the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. But when I don't have a system for something, it can take me hours a week
Yeah.
to complete whatever result that I need to get done. But when systems are in place, I may not have to do it at all. It may be delegated to someone who oversees that. And I just they check in with me and it takes up 30 seconds on a meeting on a Tuesday. But it also might be a system where I actually check on things myself and it might take me 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it could be 3-4 hours of work. I mean, I still catch myself at times where I go, man, I've been working a lot. What have I been doing? And then going, oh, what can be taken off my plate?
Dude,
And
huge.
I've been doing it. I've been in entrepreneurship for 12 years and I'm still finding things. It's getting finer and finer and finer, which is awesome because the more of that work that I do, the more refinement I have, the more I get to just do the work that I want to do. And the freedom you're talking about, that's what I experience more of, the more structure gets put in place.
Yeah. But you said something there too, Mike, that's really important, is that like, what am I actually doing? Right? Like most coaches, I think a lot of entrepreneurs even get so caught in the busy trap that they're not necessarily sure exactly what they're doing. And I think that being diligent, and I'm not saying you have to do this all the time, but being able to do like a time audit or like a time study where you look at what you're actually doing in time blocks, and then looking at it and being like, wow, like I'm wasting 20 minutes here, 30 minutes there, or I'm doing these tasks I shouldn't be doing. It's very insightful. And then you can create systems around the things that you don't need to be doing or that you just flat out don't want to be doing. And you can also see where you're wasting time. So like actually being diligent about like, what am I doing literally, not like, oh, well, I'm working. Like, what am I doing? Like, what's the objective? What's the goal? What's the destination? Not just like, okay, cool. Working, doing, okay, time to go do more. It's like, no. What are you doing? Right?
Yeah.
Huge thing.
Well, I think we forget why we started doing something at some point, or we started doing something thinking it was going to work in a certain way and create a result. And then we give it time. It does not get the result. And then we forgot why we started doing it, but it's just something that we do every week now or every day now. So that's, consciously approaching what you're doing. That's a practice for sure. It can be exhausting if you're trying to monitor yourself constantly.
I mean, it can be, but I think it's more liberating than exhausting on a lot of levels, because it's like, I think energy, like using energy to constantly just do, is more exhausting than having a closed loop, right? So it's like, if we're even cognitively, like we're focused on completion. So if we have a destination we're moving to, and we're doing activities that get us to that destination, and then at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year, whatever, we can look at that and say, wow, like that's done, that's launched, that's producing X, Y, and Z. There's something that happens where we're like, well, okay, cool. That's like a checkbox in the greatest way of all of the things in that moving apparatus have been attended to, have been executed on, and it's bearing fruit. Right. Yeah. So there's completion in there, instead of just like, doing the routine every week or every day because we have to, or because that's something. We get in this like kind of like rut of doing shit, which when you finally like see, at least for me, I know that when I finally saw some of the things that I was doing on a daily basis, even my meditation routine at one point, I was like, dude, time to change some shit up. Like, do it different. Yeah. And it's amazing what happens when you actually see what's going on and then see the results and be like, wow, I was doing this for this reason, but now it's not doing that. So why the fuck am I doing this thing in the first place?
Yeah. When you work with a coach, what's some of the first things you see where it's like the most common issues to address first?
No clear goals. Like that's usually the first thing I see, is like people just don't know what they want, or they think they want what somebody else wants, right? So it's like goals and values are just like the two first things, right? Most people, like, even when they have a goal, it's just fucking vague, period, right? Like I was trying to find a nice way to say that, but like it's just so ambiguous, right? And it's like, well, I want to have a business that does this. And I'm like, well, what's that mean for you? And they're like, I don't know. And they're like, my life will be I was talking to a guy yesterday. I was like, cool, man. Like once you have the business, right? Like once you're having 10K months at this level, once you have this many clients, once you're working in this capacity, what does your life look like, right? What's different? Oh, my life would be exactly the same. I'm like, I literally wanted to like reach through the camera and be like, dude, you're fucking shitting me. Like, come on. Like, you would change nothing about your life if your income tripled? Like, that's not true. Number one. Number two, it's like, that's not the real goal. The real goal, so to speak, is a through thread, right? It's like, what's going to be different? I don't want to make the amount of money just for the sake of making the money. It's what I'm going to use that money for, or what it's going to allow me to do in my life. Like most people's goals are very short-sighted in the sense of like, well, I want to build a business. It's like, well, what do you want to build a business for? And then eventually you get to it and they're like, well, you know, I'm planning on having kids with my wife. And like, I want to like be like a reliable, you know, provider for my kid. It's like, oh, that's a goal. That's a goal.
Yeah.
Let's focus on that.
Yeah.
High value, family. Ooh, high value, integrity. Like take that shit to the fucking bank, right?
Yeah.
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 Obviously you could tell I get pretty jazzed about that.
That's awesome.
But,
yeah. We have a lot of coaches, you know, when I work with coaches a lot of times, you know, we take them through a process of setting up goals with a lot of, it's got a lot of teeth to them. And then have them go out and interview their clients or prospects and say, okay, I want you to like do goals with them. And then a lot of times people come back and the goal is to lose 10 pounds on average or something like that. I'm like, no, go deeper,
Seriously.
because like that's a superficial thing. And it's not superficial because it's aesthetic. It's superficial because it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. It's
losing 10 pounds could mean all sorts of things to different people. You know, losing 10 pounds to this person over here means that they, you know, they may want to lose 10 pounds because they don't want their husband to leave them. Or, you know, losing 10 pounds to someone else might mean like, you know, my doctor said my cholesterol was high and I got a 5-year-old and I want to be able to keep up with them. It's like, oh, this is not a weight loss goal.
Yeah.
People tend to buy the superficial thing, but there's an underlying motivator and all that. So, I mean, as coaches, when we're setting up our goals, it's good to give them teeth, but also when we're working with clients to remember that, I mean, that's also what keeps somebody engaged. That's what keeps people engaged over time and creates progress.
Yeah. It's the matters of the heart, man. Like, it's what's really, truly meaningful to people. Right. It's like, I think one of the disadvantages of like the internet, so to speak, is that we dehumanize people, right? Especially people who have a certain fear of working with other individuals and may hide behind a computer and have a certain level of fear about it. It's like they don't really treat their customer like a customer. It's like this distant thing on the other side of the screen, right? Or through Zoom or whatever it is. So it's like, you know, just realizing that like these are real people with real dreams and things that they love and things that they want.
Yeah. What else do you see? You do goal setting. What are some things that are missing for coaches?
I mean, on the like strategic tactical level, like time management. You know, we talked about that a few minutes ago. Most people have zero idea how to manage their time. Which again, well, not again, but which really comes down to like effectively being able to have healthy boundaries, right? Like, especially if you have clients or maybe you have a couple of different gigs that you work, right? Like if you have a few large clients, most people just don't know how to manage their time between projects even, right? It's like they'll be ping-ponging around between things. They'll check the email, they'll pick up the phone, they'll do this. Their attention is spread thin and not realizing that like the anxiety that they feel or that lack of sense of completion is because they just haven't given themselves the proper chunk of time or energy or attention to one thing long enough to actually have it like get done enough so they feel like they moved the needle that day, instead of just like checking Instagram, going on Facebook, like responding to this, like creating this, and just like ping-ponging around, right? I can't remember who said it, but they made the analogy of like, imagine if you went out to check your mailbox as much as you check your email, right? How ludicrous would that be, bro? It's like go out to the mailbox like 60 times a day.
Well, that's Instagram for me. Not every day. On days that are like full of purpose, almost nothing happens on Instagram. But on days where I don't know what to do next, or I don't feel like doing the thing, I notice in my Instagram usage just fucking skyrockets. I'm like waiting for the robot to tell me what to do. Like, just tell me what to do, robot. Yeah, I'll respond to this.
That's where you feel the leisure in, my man, right? It's like you have activities, or like, I mean, it's kind of hard now because it's like you can't just fill your time with things going outside. But it's like, you know, for me, like the other day I said, you know, I scheduled a 4-hour run. It was done in less time. But like if I were just sitting around on a Sunday, I would have gotten into like a ton of mindless crap. You know, it's like, I'd rather go out and run from my house down to like West Asheville, like run all around town. I told the friends, like, where'd you go? I was like, well, I ran over to West Asheville. I was like, you ran to West Asheville from up here? Like, yeah. He's like, how much elevation is that? I'm like, 2,000 feet, 20 miles. He's like, are you on drugs? I'm like, not that I know of.
No.
Would you like to give me some? No, I'm just kidding.
Just the stuff in the tap water, you know, whatever.
Not Kangen, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I've been running. I'm not a runner.
Mm-hmm.
I don't identify as a runner. I'll say that.
You like running though. I've seen you run quite a bit.
I do. I'm a biped.
Yeah.
I put one foot in front of the other, and when there's something beautiful to see, yeah, I run Spartan races here and there, but out here in Utah, what I found is I'm in southern Utah near Zion, is I was not in running shape when I got here. I'm in good running shape now, but I'm actually limited by my body out here. It's like, oh, what am I gonna do? Well, I went real hard on the weights yesterday, and then the day before that, I ran really far. So I really should just give my body a break. So I guess I'll just read books and check Instagram.
Dude, that's one of my favorite places in the country. Like all those parks. I remember the first time I went cross country, I started at, which one is the first one? Was it Zion? No, Zion's the last one. Anyways, I went like Capitol Reef, like Canyonlands, all of the parks around southern Utah, and did like 15 or 20 miles in each park each day, over 5 days or 6 days, however many there are. This was in like 2004 or 5. But dude, it was the best. Oh my God, I loved it. So good.
It's crazy out here.
So good. It's like a freaking playground for big kids.
Yeah. And COVID-19 hit in the spring, so it's perfect time of year. So starting to get hot. So Tahoe's next. So got to go north. Got to escape this desert.
I can't agree with that, man. I like the hotter the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what else? Like what are these big issues that, like, what's some systems that people aren't thinking of? Like I mean, these are initial things, you know, making sure you have goal setting. It's so funny because it sounds so obvious, like goal setting and time management. But if you don't start with that, then anytime you start layering in anything else, it becomes problematic, right? So if
you don't have anything to gauge it against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as building, say I'm a coach, I'm doing like 10K a month, and I want to go beyond that. Like, what are some common things? Like, start building something that's a little more sophisticated.
Well, I mean, there's really things to check before that happens, though, too, right? I think that a lot of new coaches are sold this idea that they need to scale their business before they've, let's say, worked with someone in a particular capacity to achieve a particular result, right? Like that through thread of like, this is the problem I solve, this is who I solve it for. Scaling without definition or without being able to really articulate your offer for the person it's for is fruitless. Like I really truly don't think that you can scale without that. So that's number one. You got to have that first.
You got to be getting consistent results.
Yeah, you have to be getting consistent results with your clients. And
also, I believe five is not plural enough.
No,
I tell people like get 100.
Like, yeah, I mean, you can even go with like 20, 30, 40, 50. You can start testing things, right? It's like if you're spooling up, like if you go with a webinar funnel, or if you go with, there's different models that people could subscribe to, right? So it's like once you're building systems, it's like if you look at how you bring clients in, you can look at it a few different ways, right? Like systems are for coaches at the end of the day, they do one-to-one and they do group, or they do live events, or they do retreats. So it's like getting very clear on what it is that you want to offer and then filling that thing.
You better be offering online, baby.
Yeah, I'm going to make it real complicated, right? It's like get clear on the thing at the end and then fill that thing by bringing people into it, right? And there's a number of different ways that you can do that, right? You could have a podcast, you could have a show, you could have a webinar that people see, you could have a sales video that people see, you could do a certain strategy on social media. But like, I personally believe that there's systems, you can do anything systematically, right? So it's like at the end of the day, you need to bring leads into your business. So what way do you want to bring leads into your business? And then looking around for whatever strategy you choose and building systems around that. You know, there's plenty of things that you shouldn't be doing in your business, like checking email, right? Like have an assistant, first of all. Like I'm going to just say straight up, like I am probably not the best person to speak to this because I'm yet to have an assistant myself. And this is going to be my growth edge, just to be completely blunt, is that I need to have more help in my business for where I'm at, especially now that school's not a thing. Because to be a single dad and to try and do all of this at the same time is absolutely ludicrous. So with that said, having somebody that could do all of the things that you shouldn't be doing is number one, right? So that's for me, that's for other people as well. But then also being able to systematize all of the things within the system. Like, let's say, for instance, you have a webinar funnel, right? Like, say you have a webinar, people are coming into that, maybe you're driving paid traffic to it. If you don't have a message that's clear and you don't have an offer that's clear and you don't have something you're driving people to, you have no business doing ads in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Like, too many people do ads and they're like, well, I'm going to just put some money into Facebook and see where it goes. It's like, really? Like, why? Like, well, I'm going to test an offer and drive traffic to it. It's like, you're going to drive cold traffic to like an ambiguous offer that you haven't tested on people yet. Good luck with that. Have fun. Waste some money. So
yeah, I've had a lot of coaches come and go, Facebook ads don't work. I go, huh? They're like, well, when they click the ad, where do they go? And then they're like, well, they just go to my homepage. I go look at their homepage and I'm like, it's not even an offer here. Like,
yeah.
You're just like, you basically just sent traffic to a business card.
Yeah. I think they call that fundamental attribution error, right? It's like, it's this. I know it. It's this. Facebook ads don't work. Nah, man, come on. So, I mean, like within whatever high level strategy you have to just build systems that tailor to that strategy, right? So it's like if you're building a funnel and you have people that, like, if you have people submitting an application for high-end one-to-one, maybe have somebody review those applications and then filter it out, right? It's like systems software can do that, right? So it's like if you have people get conditional logic, right? People get to a certain place in the application and say you want to vet people by their income level. And they say they make less than 60K or less than 80K and you don't want to work with those people. The application, shoots them out at that point, right?
Yeah.
So understanding all of the different facets of the way that you bring business in the door and understanding who you want to work with and what kind of leads that you want, all of that really just goes into the kind of mix of how to build systems, right? So it's like at the end of the day, if you're a coach, you need leads. So identify the way that you best want to bring in leads for your business and just do that really well and build systems around it.
Yeah, you said something. I want to recover something that you mentioned, and that is, and we did get into a little bit, but got me thinking. And a lot of coaches, they want to go into coaching because they want freedom, right? And they got some type of coaching in some way, probably inspired some change in their own life. Like, okay, my life completely transformed. I experienced a level of freedom. I want to give that to other people. And what I notice is people tend to focus in on the technology or the certification or whatever it is that caused that for them, whatever like woke them up or caused them to have a major perspective shift. For some reason, all the attention goes into the tool versus the result for the client. And so there's what you're talking about here is like getting someone to an offer page or getting someone to something where it's actually selling them a result, not the tool, because they don't know the tool's magical yet.
And that doesn't matter. Like, it really doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't. Like, obviously, meaning, well, let me kind of like break that down a little bit. The tool matters because it helps them get results, but like, they don't need to know how they're going to get the transformation.
Yeah. And that's not where they're going to buy. They want to buy the transformation. So that's what you got to lead with. I think that for a lot of coaches, one of the things I've noticed is the being an entrepreneur is attractive because you get to run your own game and all that kind of stuff. But the ability to create a vision, and that even creating a vision or goals for the future is new to a lot of people. It's I was talking to one guy recently. He basically went to school. This is most people. He goes to school from age 5 to 20 something, goes in the military, right? Gets out of the military, goes to college. So basically by the time like college is over, basically you've been under like you've been inside the government's vision for 20 plus years. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm asking someone to say, all right, now I want you to create your own vision. And it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
you need training wheels. You need a lot of help. When people, and you said something in the beginning of the show is, a lot of the goals aren't theirs. Is
Mm-hmm.
goals have been handed spoon fed to us for so long in our life that for us to, that's why when people reach their goals, it's not satisfying. It's like, oh, I reached this goal. It's like, it wasn't your goal.
Yep.
Like that was your dad's goal, or that
Yeah.
was
Oof.
that was that was like that's society's goal for you,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. And so it's so a lot of people, I think that if they want to have a career as a coach, it may be more comfortable that for them in the beginning is to work inside a coaching business where somebody has that context already built. Like, this is
Yeah.
what we're doing. You have this tool set. You actually enjoy sitting down with someone for an hour and working through some stuff, or
Mm-hmm.
training them in some way or whatever. I really get clear. Are you, like, for me, it's like, am I a coach or am I a teacher? Like, I personally enjoy teaching more than coaching.
Mm-hmm.
But I have coaches that don't want to run a business and want to work inside of a context.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I can create the context. I'm really good at that part, but I don't want to sit down with coaches all the time. So I think it's good to notice that as well as people are going forward. Is like, if people are getting into a $10,000 or more, a 5-figure a month coaching thing, and then it's kind of like, man, it's not what I thought it was. It could be one of those things too. Is either you just haven't practiced creating vision and context enough for yourself and for your clients, and you either need to work that out and get better at that, or work for somebody else as a coach, which can also be like, really, there's a lot of freedom inside of that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a coaching business. I have 3 full-time coaches. I have friends that have coaching staff where it's pretty fucking chill. Like, I look at our coaching staff. I'm like, pretty good life those guys have, working less than me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see that? You see that
Well,
a
I
lot of
mean,
people? Or
that's
what's your perspective on that?
I did that personally. When I started coaching, it was kind of a roundabout way that it happened. But like when I started coaching, I originally, my undergraduate was pre-med in biology. Like I was going to do neurosurgery. Like that's what I wanted to do professionally. And then I had this like kind of like moment where I was studying for the entrance exam for med school. And I was like, no, like I literally heard this clear no. It was my kind of like versions of conversations with God of like, this isn't your route. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what are you talking about? And then went a different route and did macrobiotic cooking. And then I was a living private chef and kind of did like a lot of different stuff. But when I finally got to coaching, I was in these classes and doing the certifications and realizing at that point, like I had no idea how to market at all. So this was in 2012 and I went to Brendan Burchard's Experts Academy, right? And it was so funny because in the room there was maybe like 200 or 300 people. This was before it was like actually like a big thing. And
What year
learned
did you go?
2012.
Okay. I went to one of his things. It's probably like 2014.
Yeah. So this is
Yeah.
a couple years before that. So it was like, it was in a smaller conference room in a hotel. And there was not a ton of people in it, which is pretty funny. But like, I went back to the company that I got my certifications with. And I was like, all right, cool. We got to do this. We got to do this. And back then they were still doing Maestro conference, like teleconference instead of Zoom, right? Instead of like webinars. So we did the first online program. He had a list of about 2,000 people and he said it was a dead list. And he was like, well, like this isn't going to launch. But I'm like, dude, just trust me. Like we'll shoot the video. I'll do the sales page. Like I'll do the whole A to Z thing and we'll just launch this course. I was like, all I need is a week. We're going to send 3 emails, blah, 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 warm it up, sell the thing. We did 16,000 in that first launch to a dead list. And he was sold on that. So basically I spent the better part of like 6 or 7 years building out all of the back end systems for him and that company
Oh, I didn't
and
know that.
coached in there internally. Right. So it was like, it was cool because while I was like getting my feet wet, so to speak, in the coaching realm, I was like building out all of the Infusionsoft things and this and that and everything else internally to really create the programs as well within the company and then have all of the marketing that went out for it and kind of like tweak and test and like do all the different stuff. I mean, even to the point of I was doing sound, right? Like doing the sound machine, like doing all the like mics and stuff in the live events and filming at the same time, right? And then taking all of that and putting it in Kajabi 1.0. I don't know if you remember Kajabi 1.0 back then. This was when they first launched as
Not
well.
back then. No, I've used Kajabi in the last
Yeah. So
couple
this was
years.
like, dude,
Yeah.
it was so archaic. I was like, I remember exactly what the user interface looked like. I'm like, oh my God, it's so nice now. It's like the Rolls Royce now before it was like the bicycle, which is great. I mean, nothing wrong with bikes, but you know, it's like, I'd rather be in a Rolls. So anyways, it was a great experience too, because of that exact thing. It's like, you can really just understand what areas that you want to do, right? Like I found that I really like everything. And that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to do my own business, was like, I like being at the kind of like driver's seat. And just full disclosure, like I do have one role where I'm still working as a coach internally in another company right now. Just because I really like people. So it's like I'm running my business and I'm a coach on a team as well, with Preston Smiles. I'm sure you know of
Oh
Preston, but
yeah.
like I'm a
Yeah.
coach on his team as well. So it's just, you know, nothing's ever really set in stone, right? It's like, if you can really effectively manage your time. I had a friend, she texted me last night, right? She was like, how the hell do you manage all your time? She's like, you're running like stupid mileage. And I'd send her, I still cook a lot as well. Like, you're cooking these amazing meals. You know, you're doing this project, you're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. Like, how are you not insane? She's like, you're holding space for all these people doing all that. I'm like, oh, just because I know how to manage my shit. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, I think that it's great to have the experience of being the driver of the train, but I also think it's great to be on the back end and have somebody else be the driver, and you'll be able to sit back and be like, I like this, I like this, I get to work with people, and just play different roles in there.
Yeah. What would you say your strengths are in entrepreneurship? Have you ever taken like Wealth Dynamics or Colby or anything like that?
I'm not a big assessment fan.
Yeah.
Not my, like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the assessment stuff. I'll just say it that way. But I think my strengths are really being able to see the big picture, and being able to pluck the things that get to happen now, and the things that don't, right? Like prioritization, being able to compartmentalize in a way, being like, all right, cool, this is important right now, this is not. And being able to, in a sense, almost like hold this thing over here in its kind of quarantine container, if you will, until it's time to come into the forefront and move forward. Because I mean, especially, you know, dude, you're a creative. It's like, you've got a million ideas, right? And it's like, if you were to just execute on everything that came through you, you'd drive yourself insane, most likely.
I've
Right?
tried. I did drive myself
Yeah,
insane. It was
it
great.
doesn't work. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great to find your
But
edge and then be like,
it
fuck yeah.
created what a lot of external chaos,
Yeah,
internal and external chaos, which
for
then
sure.
led to realization, but
Yeah,
it didn't have to be that way.
exactly. So it's like, I think one of my major strengths, and a lot what I do with other coaches as well, is like, how do you really know what to do next? Right? It's
Yeah.
like, how do you prioritize? How do you know what projects to do? And how do you know how to say no? Right? And be able to like push stuff to the side and be like, nope, that's not aligned with my goals. Nope, that's not aligned with my values. Like, that's not for me right now. But like, again, I really believe it all comes back and comes down to the conversation of like, is this aligned with my goals? Like, is this the direction I want to go in or not? And if you don't have that barometer, if you don't have that gauge to say like, oh, no, don't do that, that's a big ass distraction, then how do you know? How do you know
Yeah.
what to say yes or no to?
Yeah. I love how you started at the beginning of the conversation is goals and values. And I think about it, vision and values, which is,
Mm-hmm.
where are we going?
Yeah.
And how are we going to, like, the values are, how are we going to do it? Or how are we not going to do it?
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
values create boundaries. And so uh, for me, that's two, those are the two non-negotiables when working with a team is everybody on the team has to be aware of the vision, the goals, and know what they're contributing to reach that. And then also aware of the values of like, what are we going to do and not do to get there?
Yeah.
And outside of that, man, there's just a ton of freedom on how it's going to work. But I see a lot of, I've had issues where there was a lack of alignment with those two things, vision and values. And I witnessed that with other companies too. And it's funny is the moment you get that every single person is aligned on the team with those two things, it's like magic starts happening.
It really does, dude. Yeah. It's the glue. Like it really keeps things together and then gets things moving in a great way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have the Next Level podcast.
I do.
What kind of topics you cover there? I've been a guest on the show. Was I a guest on that show, or was it a different podcast?
No, it was the same one. It was the same one. Okay. Yeah, that was you and Mark at the same time, and that was in my place. That was fun, dude. That was a great little sit down. Yeah. So the Next Level was really originally, it started as a desire to really just unpack. I was at one point just started voraciously reading. It was funny because I hated computers and I hated reading growing up. So like eventually when I was like, when I started like diving into all of this content and personal development stuff and just like reading books on success, reading books on, different types of technologies as far as like consciousness and facilitation, personal development, psychology, all that stuff. And then diving into computers and working with my parents were like, who are you? Like, what are you talking about? Like you hated computers. You wanted to throw them against the wall. I'm like, yeah, I did. That was me. But the podcast really started as a desire to dive deeper with these people that I was reading books on and just understanding their systems more and the conversations that were going on, mainly in personal development, because like I really, and I see this consistently. And I had a great thing happen yesterday, actually, that brought this to my awareness, which I'll talk about in a second. But like, I really just wanted to dive deeper with these authors and understand more of like, what brings these ideas into fruition? Like, why are you writing these books? Like, why are you doing this? And like, I wanted to hear the emotion behind the message, right? Because I think that's what really carries the weight and what brings things forward is like, if I can connect with the feeling in something, I'm on board. If something's just dry and intellectual, like, yeah, it's cool, it's neat, like I can, mentally masturbate around it for a minute, but it's like, unless it really like brings things home, it's not going to create much change.
Well, this is why coaching matters, is because I talk to people a lot of times and they're, or I'll end up in a DM conversation with people and they say, I'm into personal development. I go, oh, what have you done? And then they list off books and podcasts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, so
you read books about it.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Not nothing, but like, yeah, you've been masturbating when you could have been sleeping with a woman or a man.
Exactly. Yeah. Whatever your preference is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Exactly. Or
whatever. Yeah, it's not the same thing. And if that's what you've done up to this point, that's perfectly fine. But this is a very, I do think that coaching is the next evolution in that. So that's why it's important, why it exists. Anyways, you were saying.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's actually, I'm glad that you said that too, because like, that's one of the number one things my clients say to me is like, wow, you took all of these things that I've been studying for years and I didn't know how to like do it. And I'm like, really? Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like it makes sense, but like, it was a tough thing to grasp at first. I was like, wow, man, that must be tough. That's like, it's like being in the friend zone for like 4 years. Right? It's like you finally made it to the big leagues. No,
yeah. I mean, if I want to get better at something, what I've learned is the way I view books is the book is just to let me know if I'm actually interested in it. If the book fires me up, then I go hire a coach for that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But if the book doesn't fire me up, then maybe what is firing me up right now? That's where I should be going. So I like to use books as a barometer, but not as my
destination. Yeah. So, I mean, that was really the first reason I started the podcast, was to really dive in with these people, unpack these concepts even deeper. Because I like that. I like to dive deep. I'm not really a surface level kind of guy. So that was the original thing. So 2015, December 21, 2015 was when it started. I did take a year off. I got separated and then divorced and realized that like I was trying to operate in a lot of the ways that I was before in that year. And I was like, you know what? A couple months in, I was just like, I've got to stop the podcast. Like, what's the essentials that I need to do right now to like really drive my business forward? And that was the thing that ended up taking a back seat for a little while. But I started to back up again a couple years ago. And it's more now an expression of really serving the people that I serve and just distilling different things that have really moved the needle for me. I'm trying to make it shorter instead of like these really long dissertations and action packed, right? So it's like, if you're listening to it, my goal is to have you be like, wow, that's a great insight. I'm going to go apply that. Not like, oh, wow, that's really cool. next, next. Like, oh no, like if I ever feel like it's just doing that, then I will stop. And for me, like I know that it's working, so to speak. Is that because people reach out to me and they're like, oh well, this was cool, and then I ask more questions. So it's like it's become a place for me to really express what it is that I do with my clients and be able to help people on a different level. Maybe that can't jump into the coaching yet.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. You took a year off, and I imagine that maybe it hurt your business, maybe it didn't, but it wasn't. Sounds like it was not essential.
It had
to
the
your
opposite
business.
effect, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so it had the opposite effect, which is what? It made it harder to run your business?
No, meaning it didn't hurt my business at all. It's like my business did a lot better without it.
Maybe it's a distraction.
Well, it was just a non-essential. Like it was fun to do it, but it was not an income producing activity, period.
Yeah. All right. So I'm glad you said that, because I have a lot of people, they go, oh, I want to, they're going into business. I'm going to start a podcast. And I'm like, and I go, man, pump your brakes.
Seriously.
There's so many podcasts out there these days. Like if this was a decade ago, I would have said, get in there. But being first is a big deal. Barbell Shrugged was the first in its category. That's why we did so well. Not because we're marketing geniuses. It's because we did see the genius thing we did was recognize there was a hole in the market that needed to be filled, and we filled it perfectly. But like it's not a revenue. It tends to not be that revenue generating thing. It's not how you get leads. People just don't stumble on your podcast. I mean, if you do a Google search for anything, podcasts do not show up on the first page of Google. And if they do, it's because, Tim Ferriss did an awesome job doing his marketing with SEO and all that stuff, and used some magic, and has invested some real money. And
it's not predictable. Yeah, it's not a highly predictable medium, in my opinion.
It's not. And so there's so many other areas. If you invested that same amount of time and energy, you would get a much bigger benefit. So I like you saying that, is when people, they're starting a business and like, oh, I have to start a podcast. It's like, no, you don't. Not one iota. I don't think I get a lot of new people. People don't discover me through the podcast. I do think that they discover what I'm up to, or one of the businesses are up to at some point, and then they become a listener. So I think podcast is a great lead nurture,
absolutely,
which I think is what you were getting at, which was they're not ready to buy my coaching yet, but they want to be a part of the conversation. And so that's a large part of what's going on with the podcast. Is it's a great way to nurture all these people who may end up being customers at some point, but just not yet.
It's not a direct path. It's an indirect path for sure.
Yeah. So warning to everyone who thinks that podcasting is like, when they see people who are successful podcasting, I think, well, people just copy what successful people are doing, right?
Yeah.
Or
on the surface, at least.
Yeah. It's like, or at least they appear successful. And there's a lot of copying going on, which can be a problem.
Very problematic. It's still in the realm of false values, man. It's just not, it's indirect. It's fucked, period.
Yeah.
All
right. Anything you want to leave the coaches with before we roll?
Yeah. This has come into my awareness a couple of times since we've chatted. It's just like, get clear on what you want. It's just like so many people think they want what other people have, whether it's for, to look credible or to like do all these things. It's like, just focus on helping people. Right. And then go find people to help, period. Like fuck the bells and whistles, and just really focus on like, this is who I help and this is the problem I solve. And then do the easy thing and find people to solve that problem for. I mean, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. And I think if you can focus on that, scaling is going to be a hell of a lot easier. Clarity is going to be a lot easier. Goals are going to be a lot easier. It's just a conversation that's a lot easier to have when you're clear on those things.
Yeah. Simply and brilliantly said. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Where can people find your podcast? Where can people find your, website, Instagram, all that stuff?
Yeah. So on social media, it's at Jeff Agostinelli for all of it. Easiest way, because my name is Italian and long and hard to spell, is if you just go to jeffa.co. That'll take you to the main website. Everything's on there. Podcast is on there. Socials on there. And And as I mentioned, it's been going since 2015. So we're like almost 200 episodes. It's been a weekly show. So there's tons of stuff there. Super active on social. So definitely come and join the conversation. I love, and now too, you'll see all of my favorite COVID memes about like people jumping out of planes without parachutes and it being a COVID death. And other great things like that.
I do enjoy your Instagram.
Thanks, buddy.
I get some chuckles.
Humor is high on my values list, so you'll see a lot of that. Yeah,
love it. Not me. I just like to make people feel pain. But
so not true.
No. All right, Jeff. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, you're welcome, buddy.